There were things Nia Collins had prepared herself for in this marriage: the danger of his world, the distance, the long nights and the calls that went unanswered because some things couldn't be explained and some explanations couldn't be given. She had prepared for all of that. She had not prepared for this. Nobody prepared for this. She almost didn't look at the photograph. Her phone had been buzzing all afternoon. The particular Tuesday busyness of a woman who managed more than anyone around her fully understood. And when the notification came through from an unknown number, she nearly swiped it away the way she swiped away everything that didn't have a name attached to it. She looked at it. She stood on the pavement outside the language school in Gangnam with her bag over her shoulder and the Seoul afternoon moving around her, and looked at the photograph for a long time. Not because she needed a long time to understand it. She understood it in the first 3 seconds with the specific clarity of a woman whose intelligence had always operated faster than was comfortable. She looked at it for a long time because she was choosing, deliberately, how she was going to receive what she was seeing before she allowed herself to fully feel it: her husband. A restaurant she recognized. A private booth she had never been in. And across from him, a face. Her face, not her. She knew it wasn't her. She knew with the bone-deep certainty of a woman who had spent 32 years living inside this face and knowing exactly where she had been every moment of the last 8 weeks. She was not in that booth. She had never been in that booth, but her face was. Before we go any further, if you're new here, you found the right channel. Subscribe right now and hit the bell. This story is unlike anything you've seen before, and it's just getting started. 8 weeks earlier, she had been in Atlanta. Not visiting home for her cousin's wedding. The first time she had been back in 8 months. The particular experience of a city that knew you existing alongside the version of yourself that Seoul had been building. She moved between the two versions easily that weekend. The Atlanta Nia and the Seoul Nia. The girl who had grown up in these streets, and the woman who had learned to navigate a city on the other side of the world in a language she had taught herself. She found she liked both versions. She found they were, more than she had expected, the same person. Her sister found her on the second evening. Nova had always had a talent for finding her. Not physically, they had always known where the other one was. The specific awareness of twins that operated below the frequency of active thought. Nova found her in the particular way she meant, in the specific mood, at the specific moment of openness, with the specific request that was designed to land when Nia was feeling most generous. They were sitting on their mother's back porch with sweet tea and the Atlanta summer moving around them, and Nova said, "I've been thinking about coming to Seoul." Nia looked at her. "For how long?" "Just a visit," Nova said. "A month, maybe 6 weeks." She paused. "I want to see your life. I want to understand where you are." It was the right thing to say. It was always the right thing. Nova had always known which version of a request landed with Nia, and had always used that knowledge with the specific ease of someone who had been doing it for 32 years without fully examining what it was. Nia said yes. She always said yes to Nova. She said it warmly, immediately, with the full generosity of a woman who believed that what she had was worth sharing. She had no idea she was handing Nova a map. Nova arrived at Incheon Airport on a Tuesday morning with 3 suitcases and the energy of a woman who had already decided something. Nia saw it, or almost saw it. There was something in the way Nova moved through arrivals, the way her eyes swept the terminal, the way she took in the car and the route and the neighborhood as they drove to the house. It was not the wide-eyed absorption of someone seeing something new. It was the focused assessment of someone conducting an evaluation. Nia almost said something. Then she told herself she was projecting, that she was reading Nova through the lens of old dynamics that didn't apply anymore, that people changed, that Nova coming to Seoul was an act of love, and she should receive it as one. She received it as one. The house landed on Nova differently than Nia had anticipated. She watched her sister walk through the front door and take in the entrance hall, the height of it, the specific quality of the light, the understated indicators of serious wealth that Nia had stopped noticing after the first year. Nova noticed all of them. Nia watched her notice and told herself it was normal. It was a beautiful house. Anyone would notice. Hyun-soo came downstairs. He was in the mode he used for family obligations, composed, politely attentive, the version of himself that existed in the foreground of their life rather than the operational version that Nia knew and most of the world didn't. He shook Nova's hand, said he had heard a great deal about her, said she was welcome. Nova smiled. Nia had seen that smile her whole life. She knew every version of it, the genuine one, the social one, the one that was performing warmth with just enough truth underneath to be convincing. She knew which one this was. She told herself she was being uncharitable. The first dinner was pleasant. Nova was charming and funny and asked Hyun-soo questions about Seoul with the curiosity of someone genuinely interested. He answered them with more engagement than Nia had expected. He was not typically a man who opened easily with people he had just met. But Nova had always had that quality, the ability to make people feel chosen by her attention, which was a talent and a weapon depending on how it was used. Nia watched the dinner and felt proud of her sister. She told herself that was what she felt. That night Nova lay in the guest room and looked at the ceiling and felt the full shape of the decision she had been moving toward since the Atlanta porch. She did not examine it too closely. She had learned that examining certain decisions too closely prevented you from making them. The mistaken identity happened on a Thursday morning in the third week. Nia had a language class, the 8:30 session she had maintained for 18 months, the commitment she had made to herself in the first year that she would learn Korean properly rather than coast on Hyun-soo's willingness to translate. She left the house at 8:15 with her textbook and her travel mug, and the specific purposefulness of a woman who kept her commitments. Nova was still asleep, or was supposed to be. Hyun-soo rarely came downstairs before 9 on days without early meetings. This was a Thursday without early meetings. At 8:40 he came downstairs. Nova was in the kitchen in Nia's robe, the gray one that hung on the back of the master bathroom door, which Nova had borrowed twice already without asking, which Nia had noticed, and had not said anything about because it was a robe, and she was trying not to be territorial about small things. She was making coffee with her back to the door, her hair up the way Nia wore her hair in the mornings, in a kitchen she had been moving through for 3 weeks and had learned the geography of completely. Hyun-soo said something in Korean, something private, the specific shorthand of a marriage, the kind of thing you said to the person you had woken up beside for 2 years without considering that anyone else might be in the room. His voice was warm, unself-conscious. Nova turned 3 seconds. That was how long the moment lasted, 3 seconds in which his face moved through recognition and confusion and apology, and something else that Nova filed and Nia would never fully know about. "I'm sorry," he said. In English. "I thought, it's fine," Nova said, in Nia's cadence. Not a choice, 32 years of shared language made the mimicry reflexive. But she felt it happen and she did not correct it, and the not correcting was a choice. He left for his office. Nova turned back to the coffee. She stood at the counter for a long moment and felt the specific electricity of an opportunity presenting itself. Not a manufactured one, not something she had engineered, something that had simply appeared and was waiting to be used. She picked up the coffee, took it to the living room, sat in the chair that Nia usually sat in by the window. She thought about Atlanta, about 32 years of the same face in different packaging. About the Sunday calls and Nia's warmth and the specific ease with which Nia gave things away. She thought about the 3 seconds she thought, "I could." She began deliberately the following week. Not dramatically, she was too smart for dramatic. Small things, calculated things. She wore Nia's clothes when Nia was out, not all of them, just enough. The pieces that carried the most of Nia's style without being so specific that a careful person would notice. She memorized Hyun-soo's schedule from the household calendar that lived on the kitchen tablet, cross-referenced it with the details Nia had shared on Sunday calls over 2 years. She knew his coffee order, his preferred dinner time, the specific topics that engaged him versus the ones he tolerated. She positioned herself in rooms at the right times, in conversations that had the right openings, with the right level of availability, not obvious, not pushed, just present in the way that certain people were present when they had decided to be noticed. Hyun-soo noticed. He told himself it was the novelty of the twin dynamic, the specific disorientation of someone who shared a face with his wife, but was an entirely different person. He told himself his attention was intellectual. He told himself he was simply being a good host. He told himself several things that were not fully true and accepted each of them with the ease of a man who was very good at the things he chose to be good at and was not choosing, right now, to be rigorous about this. Nova read his attention accurately and calibrated her approach accordingly. By week 5, she had attended one dinner that Nia had canceled due to illness, had told Hyun-soo's assistant that Nia was feeling better and would be coming after all, had gone herself, had spent 3 hours being charming and intelligent in a room full of his associates, and had not been questioned once. The face was the same. The name was the same. The city didn't know the difference. She told herself Nia would never find out. She had fundamentally misunderstood who her sister was. You felt it in the 5th week. Not a specific thing, a texture. The quality of the house had shifted in a way she could not locate. Hyun-soo was present but with a slightly different quality of presence, still attentive, still himself in the ways that mattered, but with something underneath that was new and had no obvious explanation. Nova was warm but with the specific overwarmth of someone managing something, the warmth that had a purpose under it. She sat with it for 3 days without acting on it. Then she started paying attention. She had always been the detail-oriented one, the one who noticed things, the one who had managed their finances, their household, the legitimate side of Hyun-soo's world, had done it all with the thoroughness of someone who believed that the details were where the truth lived. She turned that thoroughness on her own house and her own marriage with the specific steadiness of a woman who needed to know before she acted and would not act on anything less than the full picture. She found the dinner attendance record first. A small thing, an entry in the building's security log that showed Hyun-soo's car returning at 11:47 on a Wednesday when Nia had been home sick and had assumed the dinner had been attended alone. 2 people had been logged in the vehicle. She had been home. The math was not complicated. She said nothing. She kept looking. The photograph arrived on a Tuesday. She had been looking for 11 days by then, quietly, methodically, without tipping her hand to anyone, and the photograph arrived from an anonymous number like the answer to a question she had been assembling the context for. She stood on the Gangnam pavement and looked at it and understood immediately what it meant and what it confirmed, and what it meant that she had not been paranoid and had not been projecting and had not been reading old dynamics into new situations. She had been right. She had been right for 11 days, and the photograph was simply the last piece of a picture she had almost finished building herself. She did not call Hyun-soo. She did not confront Nova. She went back to her language class. She had left early to run an errand. She went back. She sat in the chair and conjugated verbs for 40 minutes with the specific focus of a woman who needed her mind occupied while the rest of her decided what to do next. Then she went home, made tea, sat at the kitchen table, and started making a list. She gave herself 3 days, not to grieve, she would grieve later properly when the work was done. 3 days to build the complete picture. She had started it over 11 days of quiet observation, and the photograph had confirmed the direction. Now she needed the full map before she moved. She was methodical about it. She pulled the household accounts first, the ones she managed, which was all of them, because she had always been the one who managed them and nobody had ever thought to question that arrangement, because she was so good at it that questioning it would have been like questioning the plumbing. She went through 3 months of records with the specific attention of a woman who had been doing this for 2 years and knew exactly what normal looked like and therefore knew exactly what wasn't normal. The dinner was there. A restaurant charge on a Wednesday evening. The amount, the location, the time. Cross-referenced with the security log entry she had already found. 2 people. Her husband. Her face. She kept going. She found 2 more evenings she hadn't known about. Smaller, coffee, a walk logged by the building security camera she had access to through the household system that nobody had thought to mention to Nova existed. 8 weeks of small accumulations that individually meant nothing and together meant everything. She called the woman who had sent the photograph on the second day. Her name was Jae-yeon. She worked in the outer edge of Hyun-soo's legitimate operations, the logistics side, the part that touched the real world. Nia had met her at 3 events over 2 years and had always found her direct in the way that women were direct when they had decided you were worth being direct with. Jae-yeon had sent the photograph because she had a sister. She said this plainly when Nia asked why. "Long have you known?" Nia asked. 3 weeks, Jae-yeon said. "I wanted to be sure before I understand," Nia said. "Thank you." She asked Jae-yeon 2 more questions. Jae-yeon answered both. Nia thanked her again and ended the call and sat at the kitchen table with her tea and the full picture finally assembled in front of her. 8 weeks. The full 8 weeks of Nova's visit. She sat with it for a long time. She thought about the Atlanta porch, the sweet tea. "I want to see your life. I want to understand where you are." She thought about every Sunday call over 2 years, the details she had shared, the warmth she had given freely, the specific generosity of a woman who had always believed that what she had was worth sharing with the person she had shared everything with since birth. She thought about Nova in her robe, Nova in her clothes, Nova in her chair by the window, Nova with her face in a private booth in a restaurant Nia had never been to. She pressed her hands flat on the kitchen table. Then she picked up her phone and called the attorney. "This story is already something else. Hit that like button right now if you're feeling every word of this. Let's keep going." The attorney was a woman named Park Soo-jin who operated out of a firm in Seoul and had a reputation for being very good and very expensive and entirely worth both. Nia had identified her 6 months ago, not because she had anticipated needing her, but because she had always believed in knowing where the exits were before you needed them. She had filed the name away and hoped she would never use it. She called her on the second day. Soo-jin listened to the situation with the specific focus of someone who was already thinking 3 steps ahead while the facts were still being presented. She asked 4 questions. She told Nia what she needed to document and how to document it and what the timeline looked like. "Much of the legitimate business documentation do you have access to?" Soo-jin asked. "Of it," Nia said. "I've been managing it for 2 years. A pause. "All of it," Soo-jin repeated. "Of it," Nia confirmed. Another pause, the pause of an attorney recalibrating the scope of what she was working with. "Mrs. Kang," she said, "I think you may be in a significantly stronger position than you realize." "I know exactly what position I'm in," Nia said. "That's why I called you." She spent the 3rd day finishing the documentation. Every account she had managed, every business relationship she had cultivated on Hyun-soo's behalf, every contract negotiation she had participated in, every partnership she had facilitated, the 2 years of work she had done without a title or a formal acknowledgement because she had been doing it for love and had not thought to ask for either. She thought about it now. She assembled it all into a folder, physical and digital, with the thoroughness of someone who had always known that the details were where the truth lived, and was now using every detail she had ever paid attention to for herself rather than for someone else. Then she booked the restaurant. She called Hyun-soo first, not to confront, to invite. She used the voice she always used with him, warm, easy, the specific tone of a Tuesday evening dinner suggestion. She said she wanted to take him somewhere nice. She said she had been wanting to try the place in Gangnam she had heard about. She said she would make the reservation. She had already made the reservation. At the restaurant in the photograph. In the private dining room, he said yes. He said it with the warmth he always said yes with, the warmth that had made her believe for 2 years and 8 weeks that she was the most important thing in his world. She said the reservation was for 3. 3, he said. "I thought Nova should join us," she said. "She's leaving soon." Family dinner. A pause, brief, controlled, the pause of a man who was very good at not reacting. "Of course," he said. She called Nova. Nova answered on the second ring with the brightness she had been performing for 8 weeks. Nia told her about the dinner, told her it was a celebration, she didn't specify what. Nova said she'd be there. She hung up and sat in the silence of her own preparation. She was ready. She arrived at the restaurant 45 minutes early. She spoke to the manager, a woman she had called that morning, and explained the situation to with enough specificity that the woman had understood what kind of evening this was going to be and had ensured that the private dining room was exactly as Nia had requested. She sat at the table and reviewed the folder one more time, not because she needed to review it, she knew every page. Because the reviewing was the final act of preparation, the last confirmation that she had everything she needed and had left nothing to chance. She closed the folder, ordered water, waited. Nova arrived first. She came through the door of the private dining room with the specific energy of someone who had received an invitation she wasn't entirely sure about and had decided to handle it with full performance. Bright, warm. The Nova smile deployed at maximum capacity. She saw Nia's face and the smile flickered, just once, quickly recovered. "Hey," Nova said. Sit down, Nova," Nia said. Something in Nia's voice, not loud, not cold, just completely certain, made Nova sit without finishing the sentence. They looked at each other across the table. 32 years of the same face looking at itself from opposite sides of something that could not be uncrossed. "Going to wait for Hyun-soo," Nia said. "I'm only doing this once." Nova closed her mouth. They sat in silence. Hyun-soo arrived 4 minutes later. He came through the door with the composure he brought to everything, and then he saw them both at the table and the composure did something she had never seen it do before. It stayed on his face, but the architecture underneath it shifted. Something in his eyes moved through recognition and dread, and a resignation that told her everything she needed the last confirmation of. He sat down. He looked at Nia. Then at Nova. Then at Nia. "Hi," he said. The word landing in the room like something that understood it was inadequate. She let him sit. She let the silence hold for exactly the right amount of time, long enough for both of them to feel the weight of it, not so long that it became theatrical. Then she opened the folder. She put the photograph on the table first. The one Jaeyeon had sent. She watched both of their faces and read both of them completely and confirmed what she had already known. Then she laid out the rest. The dinner attendance record, the security log entries, the documentation of 2 more evenings, Jaeyeon's account written and signed of what she had witnessed over 3 weeks, the record of Nova attending the Wednesday dinner in Nia's place, the guest list, the building log, the timestamp. She talked them through each piece with the calm of someone who had rehearsed this not for performance but for precision. She did not raise her voice. She did not cry. Her hands were completely still on the table. When she finished, she looked at both of them. "I want you both to understand something," she said. "I know everything, every detail. I have known for 3 days." She paused. "I want you to sit with that. The fact that while you were doing whatever you were doing, I was knowing. That the entire time you thought you were getting away with something, I was building a file." Private dining room was completely still. Nova opened her mouth. Nia looked at her with an expression that had no anger in it, something colder and more permanent than anger. "Don't," she said. Nova closed her mouth. Nia looked at Hyun-soo. He was looking at the table. She waited. She had always been good at waiting until he looked up, until he met her eyes. "I learned Korean for you," she said. "I left my city, my family, my career. I left everything that was mine and I came to a country that didn't speak my language and I built a life inside your world because you were my home." She paused. "I managed your accounts. I cultivated your business relationships. I showed up to every dinner and every event and every obligation, and I did it because I loved you and because I believed you saw me." He said her name. "I'm not finished," she said. He stopped. "You let her wear my face," she said. Simply, without elaboration. Because it didn't need elaboration, it was the most complete sentence she had ever spoken and they both knew it. She stood, picked up her bag, left the folder on the table. "My attorney will be in touch," she said to Hyun-soo. She looked at Nova one last look, the full weight of 32 years contained in it. "I want you out of my house by tomorrow morning." Not his house. Mine. I made it mine. She picked up her coat, walked out of the private dining room, through the restaurant. Through the front door. Into the Seoul night. She stood on the pavement for exactly 30 seconds, allowed herself 30 seconds of feeling the full size of what had just happened. Then she started walking. She had a hotel to check into, an attorney to call, a life to rebuild on her own terms. She had things to do. The hotel room was quiet in the way that rooms were quiet when they had never held anything personal. Nia stood at the window with her coat still on and looked out at Seoul. The city spread below her, lit and indifferent and entirely alive, and felt the specific quality of a woman who had just done something irreversible and was standing on the other side of it still intact. She had not expected to feel intact. She had expected. She wasn't sure what she had expected. Something louder. Something that required more management. What she felt instead was a deep and specific clarity, the kind that came when you had been carrying an uncertainty for weeks and had finally resolved it into something certain, even if the certainty was painful. She took off her coat, sat on the edge of the bed, called her mother. Her mother answered on the second ring the way she always answered, immediately, with the full presence of a woman who had raised two daughters and had learned that the calls that came after 9 in the evening deserved her complete attention. Nia, her mother said, just her name, with the specific weight of a woman who had already understood from the sound of the call, connecting that this was not a regular Tuesday night. I need to tell you something, Nia said. The full version. I'm not going to protect you from any of it. Me, her mother said, she told her. Everything from the Atlanta porch to the anonymous photograph to the 3 days of documentation to the restaurant and the folder and the two faces across the table and the sentence that had ended it. She told it in the same calm voice she had used all evening because the calm was not performance. It was the specific steadiness of a woman who had processed the worst of it already in the quiet of 3 days and a kitchen table and was now simply reporting. Her mother listened without interrupting. When Nia finished, there was a silence, not the silence of shock, but the silence of a woman absorbing something and deciding what it required from her. Tell me what you need, her mother said. I need a good attorney, Nia said. I have one, Park Sujin Siacho. Look her up, her mother said. She's excellent, Nia said. I vetted her 6 months ago. A pause. 6 months ago, her mother repeated. I believe in knowing where the exits are, Nia said. Her mother was quiet for another moment. Then, not with surprise, with the specific recognition of a woman who had always known what her daughter was made of. You're going to be okay. I know, Nia said. I'm going to be okay. Because of him, her mother said. In spite of him, Nia said. Exactly that. She hung up, sat in the hotel room quiet, ordered room service. She actually ate. She had not been eating properly for 3 days and her body had been patient about it and she owed it a proper meal. She ate at the small table by the window with Seoul outside and felt, underneath everything, the specific solidity of a woman who knew who she was. That had not changed. Through all of it, 8 weeks of a sister wearing her face, a husband who had let it happen, a life she had built inside someone else's world that had not changed. She was still Nia Collins. She had always been the one who built things. She was going to build something now. We are deep inside this story, and it is only getting better. Subscribe right now if you haven't already and hit that bell. Let's keep going. In the private dining room, Hyun-soo and Nova sat in the silence Nia had left behind. The folder was on the table between them, the photograph on top of it. The full documentation of 8 weeks assembled with the precision of a woman who had never done anything halfway. Nova spoke first. Hyun-soo, don't, he said. The word was not loud. It landed the way quiet words landed when the person saying them had spent 15 years building an organization that operated on the specific authority of their voice. Nova went still. He looked at the folder. He looked at the photograph. He looked at the documentation of the Wednesday dinner, the one where she had attended in his wife's place, in his wife's name, with his wife's face, in a room full of people who moved in his world and had not questioned it because why would they question it? And felt something move through him that was not a single emotion but several simultaneously, and none of them were comfortable. He had told himself, at various points over 8 weeks, various things, that it was innocent, that Nova's company was simply engaging, that the dinner had been a one-time lapse in judgment that didn't mean anything, that Nia would never find out, that even if she found out, it was not as serious as it looked. Sitting in the private dining room with the folder on the table, he understood, with the specific clarity of a man who had built his life on accurate assessment, that every one of those things had been a lie he had told himself because the truth was inconvenient. He looked at Nova. She was looking at the table. The performance was gone, all of it, the charm and the warmth and the 32 years of practiced ease. What was left underneath it was something smaller and less impressive than he had allowed himself to see while the performance was running. "Get out of Seoul," he said. "Tonight." She looked up. "Hyun-soo, I think if we just— Tonight," he said. "I will have someone drive you to the airport. I will have someone pack whatever is in the house and send it to Atlanta." He looked at her with the expression he used in rooms where things needed to be understood without repetition. "We are done having this conversation." She opened her mouth one more time. He looked at her. She closed it. He stood, left the folder on the table, walked out of the private dining room and through the restaurant and into the Seoul night, and called his driver, and stood on the pavement, and felt the specific weight of a man who understood exactly what he had lost and had nobody to blame for it except himself. Nova came back to the house at 11. She had gone somewhere after the restaurant. She didn't know where, just walked. The way you walked when you needed the city to absorb something you couldn't absorb yourself. Seoul was good for that, indifferent and enormous. It took what you brought to it without comment. She stood outside the house and took out her key, put it in the lock. It didn't turn. She tried again. Then again. Then she stood on the doorstep of the house she had been living in for 8 weeks and understood that the locks had been changed, and that the key in her hand was a key to a door that no longer opened for her, and that this was not an accident. She stood there for a long time. She thought about Atlanta, about the back porch and the sweet tea and the specific ease of asking Nia for things and having Nia say yes. She thought about 32 years of the same face, the way they had moved through their childhood together, the way people had always looked at them and seen the same thing, the way Nia had always been the grounded one, and Nova had always been the one who wanted more than she had. She had always told herself that Nia's groundedness was a kind of settling, that Nia accepted things Nova would have fought for, that Nia's generosity was really a failure of ambition. Standing on the doorstep in the Seoul night with a useless key in her hand, she understood, for the first time and too late, that she had been completely wrong about all of it. Nia's groundedness was not settling. It was foundation. You could not take what Nia had because what Nia had was not the house or the husband or the city. It was the specific quality of a woman who knew who she was and built accordingly. You could not wear that. You could not steal it. You could only watch it from the outside and mistake it for something simpler than it was. She had mistaken it for something simpler than it was. She called the airline, booked the first flight to Atlanta, sat on the doorstep of the house that was not hers and waited for the car Hyun-soo's assistant had arranged, which arrived at midnight without ceremony or conversation, which drove her to a hotel for the remaining hours and then to Incheon in the morning. She did not look back at the city as the car pulled away. She did not have the right to find it beautiful anymore. Hyun-soo called 14 times over 3 days. She watched each call end on the screen. On the 15th she picked up. 60 seconds, she said. Use them. I need more than 60 seconds, he said. Please, just hear me out, that's all I'm asking. Something in his voice was different, not the managed version, something rawer underneath it. She had heard that voice before. It was the voice he used when something was actually true. Talk, she said. He talked. He told her everything. From the beginning, the night Nova had appeared in the kitchen in her robe, the discomfort of it, the way he had apologized and left immediately. The dinners he had thought Nia was attending that he now understood had been Nova. How he had felt something was off but had attributed it to the twin dynamic, the disorientation of someone who shared a face with his wife. He had not understood what was actually happening until the restaurant, until Nia had laid the folder on the table and he had seen the full picture assembled and had understood in one sitting what had been constructed around him. She made advances, he said, directly. The Wednesday I thought you had canceled. She came to the dinner as you. Afterward, when I drove her home, she said things. I told her she needed to stop. I told her this was not something that was happening. I thought I had handled it. I thought it was over. A pause. I should have told you immediately, I know that. I was trying to figure out how to tell you your sister had done something like that without. I was trying to protect you from it. That was wrong. I know it was wrong. Nia was very still on her end of the phone. You didn't tell me, she said. No, he said. And I'm sorry. Not a managed sorry, I am genuinely sorry. You deserve to know the moment it happened, and I made a decision that was not mine to make. She sat with it, with the full shape of it, the photograph that had looked like one thing and had been something else. The evidence she had assembled that had told a story she had read correctly in its details and incorrectly in its conclusion. Nova making advances. Hyun-soo handling it and staying silent and not reassuring her, and not protecting her from the version of events that the silence had allowed to form. "Owe you an apology," she said. "I didn't ask for your side. You had a photograph," he said. "You had documentation, your conclusion was reasonable. Wasn't complete," she said. "I built a case without hearing the other witness." She paused. "I'm sorry for that." "I'm sorry," he said, "for every moment I didn't reassure you, for every time I could have made you more certain of us and didn't. You should never have been in a position where a photograph could make you doubt me. That's on me." Line was quiet for a long moment. "Come home," she said. He was there in 20 minutes. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she had made her list, where she had assembled the case, where she had prepared for war. They sat at it now differently, honestly. The way they should have been sitting at it for longer than they had. They talked for 2 hours. Not about Nova, about themselves. About the distance that had been growing that neither of them had named. About the reassurance he hadn't given and the questions she hadn't asked, and the space between them that other people could move into precisely because they had left it open. By the end of it, something had been rebuilt that was sturdier than what had been there before. Not because the difficulty hadn't happened. Because they had walked through the difficulty and come out the other side speaking more honestly than they had in months. Nova called from Atlanta 3 days later. Nia picked up. Nova apologized. At length, genuinely, with the specific devastation of a woman who had examined what she had done without the protection of self-justification and had found nothing in it worth defending. She said she was sorry for the advances, sorry for the pretending, sorry for wearing Nia's face and her name and her life as though they were costumes she had the right to try on. Nia listened to all of it. "Hear you," she said when Nova finished. "Can you forgive me?" Nova said. Nia was quiet for a long moment. "You tried to take my husband," she said. "Not from ignorance, not from a moment of weakness, deliberately, over weeks." She paused. "I love you because you're my sister, that doesn't go away, but what you did, I'm not able to forgive that, not now, maybe not for a very long time." "Nia, I need you to understand," Nia said, "that some things change what's possible between people. This is one of them." Nova didn't respond. The silence on her end said everything that words couldn't. "Take care of yourself," Nia said. "I mean that." She hung up. She sat at the kitchen table for a moment, then she got up. Went to find Hyun-soo. He was in the living room. He looked up when she came in. She sat beside him. He put his arm around her. She let him. Outside, Seoul continued being Seoul. Inside the apartment, two people who had almost lost each other to silence and assumption sat together and did not take the sitting together for granted. That, she thought, was the difference. This is the end of this story. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe to help us continue to keep this channel running. Also comment where you're watching from. Would absolutely love to connect with you all.